Okay, this is Eric Roth, getting ready to walk through some Azure ED updates. So where we're going to start with is the naming and marketing point of this. So Microsoft has chosen to roll up all of their identity-based products into a new product name called Microsoft Entra. So this is Azure Active Directory, P1 or P2, doesn't matter. Permissions management, that's their access governance framework, and then verified IDs. Verified IDs are a new technology that allows users to own their own identity regardless of the company they work for. So it's an emerging technology there. So just want to let you know, Microsoft Entra, when you hear that name, think, for the most part today, think Azure Active Directory and permission management. That is a third-party product that they acquired about 1.5 years ago that they brought in. That's all being rolled up under this Entra product name. As a tip, you can go to entra.microsoft.com to see this new kind of unified portal for the all things identity related in Microsoft's world. Okay, so with that, let's jump over to, this is a little screenshot of what that dashboard looks like. When you go to it, there'll be 3 doors, if you will. On the left-hand side, you can expand out those blades and look at some stuff there. And by nature of this announcement, they have started to introduce some new look and feel and some new features here. One of my favorite features, I use this literally every day. So if you haven't seen this or played with this is super helpful. It's the all users view. It is a preview model here, but it's just an updated UI for the Azure ED portal. And for users and groups, there's some really slick things you can do in here. You can add columns here. So if you manage your columns here, you can add all kinds of columns that shows up here. You can also drag and drop these columns in different orders if you want. So grab the UPN and drag it to the left or right, and it'll just move that column around. So some slick things you can do there. In addition, you get to see a bunch of more attributes about the user inside Azure Active Directory. So this is super, super helpful. Before, the way I would get to this is through PowerShell or the Graph Explorer, another little tool. I can even see the on-premises attributes when you're in a hybrid mode with Azure ED Connect in place. I can even see the on-prem extension attributes, etc., all through the GUI here. I can edit some of these attributes if my users are natively mastered in the cloud. Okay, so the day has come when I'm seeing more clients. In fact, JourneyTEAM ourselves, we no longer use Active Directory in our environment. New employees are created natively in the cloud, and all of our existing employees are native cloud accounts now. So if you want information of how we made that journey, reach out to us. But you can edit information on this page, employee ID, etc. You can edit those attributes natively now up in the cloud, and you get a lot more visibility there. So I don't want to belabor that point, but really, you got to go play with this. It's super helpful. Okay. All right. Another new feature here is custom security attributes and management roles. This is the future of Azure schema extensions. Okay. I'll say that they're still new, and depending on your needs and your use cases, I would pause before I went and hog wild with these. There's some nuances to them about how you can leverage them. So for example, if I built a custom security extension, and can I leverage that in a rule for a dynamic group? No, you can't today. Could I leverage it in a SAML response for an attribute that I need to send out to a third-party SaaS app? No, I can't do that today. So this will mature and get better, but it's really powerful. And the thing I love about it is it's very easy to interact with, and you can scope and target who can edit what attributes in Azure. That's huge. Okay. So this is where Microsoft's going to go. They've got a great foundation here. And as they mature the interaction of these custom security attributes with other services, like dynamic groups and SAML things and token emitting this data into SAML and OIDC tokens, it'll be really, really powerful. So just wanted to give you a heads up that that is coming. You can also get attribute sets or families of attributes. You can apply attributes to enterprise apps. So I can start putting metadata around my enterprise apps to group and categorize them together. So some really neat things coming with these custom security attributes. Okay, moving on. One of the biggest new updates is administrative units, not just administrative units, but dynamic administrative units. So if you've never played with administrative units and you're trying to relate to what these things are, think of them as sort of similar to traditional Active Directory organizational units. Okay, they by purpose have a different name called administrative units. For the most part, the cloud is flat from Azure ED's perspective, and you don't organize things into OU structures. But you can now organize administrative things by the administrative unit, and you can make the membership of those administrative units dynamic. Where this becomes really helpful is any organization out there that has delegated administration, and you've got a group of users or devices that you want to hand off the administration of those accounts to another part of the organization. You can give someone an Azure AD administrative role, and it only applies to the objects in an administrative unit. So now, instead of giving somebody a user administrator role and they can administer any user in the tenant, you can scope that Azure AD role, which has been there for years and years, right? You can scope that Azure AD role to specifically the objects in an administrative unit. And who's in that administrative unit? All users with UPN of fill in the blank or attribute of Y or whatnot. Okay, so like I said, this is a super, super helpful thing for organizations that like a distributed administrative model for users and or devices. Okay, so that's administrative units there. And if you haven't been paying attention, please listen now. If you are running Azure ED Connect and you're synchronizing your on-prem Active Directory up to the cloud, and you are running on a 2012 server, you need to get upgraded. So Microsoft is retiring the old 1.x versions of Azure ED Connect, which will run on 2012. Okay, and that's going to be coming up like very, very soon, into this month. Okay. You need to be on the 2x version of Azure AD Connect, which you need to be at least on 2019 or newer. Like could be 2016. There's just some PowerShell versions that it has to support there. Okay, and so Azure AD Connect, if you never think about that and it just runs and you don't ever worry about it, well, it's time to think about that and worry about that. Okay. In addition, I mentioned earlier, if you're ready to move so you don't have on-prem AD, JourneyTEAM has made that transition now. And so we can talk to you about what that looks like. And we've got several other clients that are native cloud identities now. Okay, so be aware this is retiring Azure ED Connect versions. Okay, and last little interesting tip, if you there is some very specific circumstances where Azure now supports that they've had a weakness, and that's solved with this multi-instancing support now. This is a good example of here is if you have multiple Box accounts and you want to have single sign-on with each of those Box services, and they all get represented by one application in Azure AD, you can configure that. And so if you need guidance on that, let me know, but it supports both IDP and SP initiated authentication flows. So how the users get to it can be either option. And there's some advanced configuration options available to you on the enterprise application on the configuration of those attributes that help it keep straight which apps are what. So simplifies that. If you're using Box or AWS, these could be really helpful for you. Okay, what you've all been waiting for, Exchange Online updates. We've got not a ton here, but something that is very important. We've been saying this for a while. If you haven't heard about this, you should be aware of this. Microsoft will be turning off some legacy protocols. This is specifically listed here. POP, IMAP are the big ones. Exchange ActiveSync is another really big one. And that is going to prevent your ability from using those legacy protocols, which can't do, quote, modern authentication into your tenant and bypass MFA. That's why they're doing this. This of note, this will not affect SMTP authentication. If you have multifunction devices, scanners, printers that you are authenticating, that will still continue to work after October 1st. Fun surprise, Microsoft is starting to what I'm calling sending a shot over the bow of some customers' tenants. Had a client that Microsoft just decided to turn off legacy auth in the customer's tenant for 48 hours. And that got some attention. And so if you start having people with native mail clients on iOS that can't sync all of a sudden, that is probably because Microsoft is giving you a little heads up that this is turning off in October, and they're just trying to get your attention. So a most common thing that we see that's leading up to this date is native mail clients that were set up on iOS years ago, and they got their phone backed up and a new phone and restored and restored and restored. They still use the legacy Exchange Active Sync protocol. They may be on an iPhone 13, but they're still using legacy protocols. This fix is very simple. Go into your mail app and your accounts and remove your Exchange account, and then just re-add it again, and it triggers modern auth and you're good to go. Last little thing on this point, if your tenant has not enabled modern auth for Exchange Online, you are not in a good spot. I literally was on a call last week with a client, and that had still not been enabled in their tenant. And so by default, new tenants have had this for years now. But if you've had a tenant for a long time and have never went and checked if your Exchange Online setting allows modern authentication, you better do that, because you'll hit a brick wall when this gets turned off. So that's the biggest warning and reminder. Let us know if you need help with this. But Exchange Legacy Protocols is going away come October 1st. So that's what I got there.
Hello, this is Jared Foley, and we're going to talk about, inside of the Intune products, the Windows 365 Cloud PC product. This is a new feature that came into public preview where you now have the ability to resize your cloud PC. This has been a feature that's been requested for a while. A perfect use case scenario would be a user has a Windows 365 machine. They need it to be a little bit more beefy. They need their power user. They need more RAM, more hard drive. Up until this point, the requirement would be to create a whole new cloud PC for that user, and then you'd have to migrate their data over, and they would have to start on a fresh machine. Thanks to this new feature that's in preview, you now have the ability to upscale that machine to give it more RAM, give it a bigger hard drive, and a faster processor. This is something we've been excited about. We've already rolled this out for a lot of our clients that have requested this feature and helped them with it, and it works great. There is a couple of caveats to that. The first is you must have already purchased that new license that you need to migrate that cloud PC to. So make sure you have that license purchased ahead of time. And a machine, when it has been resized up, you cannot downgrade and resize it back down to where it was at. So it's only a one direction. You can move up, but you can't move back down. But yeah, it's a great feature. It should be in your public preview for your tenant if you want to try that out. And that's the update for that.